Welcome back to PeachTEA. Joining us today is Marsha Anderson Bomar. She is currently serving as Strategic Transportation Advisor for GHD. She has a career spanning for over 50 years. She had played multiple roles as a consultant. She worked in the public sector and she served in elected and appointed roles in the government. She had served as president of both ITE and ASCE's Transportation and Development Institute. Currently, she is ASCE's 2025 president-elect. Beyond her impressive credentials, she is also known for commitment to mentoring, sustainability, and shaping the future of our communities. We are very thrilled to have her on the show today. Marsha, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
You wear so many hats as an entrepreneur. You worked in the public sector, private sector. So if someone asks you, what do you do? How do you answer?
Oh, I think my favorite answer is that I change people's lives every day. Whatever role I've played, the work that I've been fortunate enough to do has given me the opportunity to make communities better and make people's lives better.
That's a wonderful answer. Let's say we go back to your initial stages of your career. What got you interested in transportation?
Oh, it's a wonderful little story. So I grew up in New York City. And later in his life, my dad went to work for the New York State Department of Transportation. And while he was working for them, there was a road called the West Side Highway, which was a very old highway that went on the west side of Manhattan. And a truck fell through the deck of the highway. So obviously they needed to make a decision as to whether they were going to rebuild the road that was there, replace it, move it, do something different with it. And it was right at the very beginning of the Environmental Protection Act, NEPA. And so they had to do an environmental impact statement. So they looked at different solutions and evaluated them. And my dad would bring the information home and we would sit and talk about it. And I found it fascinating. And that was all she wrote. I was hooked.
It's great. So I heard a different podcast of yours where you talked of your career. So I'm hoping we don't need to go into each and every detail. So I'll refer people back to your other podcast. They can listen to it and then come to our ITE. So in that, you talked a little bit about your career and you mentioned you had a bad experience at your job and then you started Street Smarts. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So you have to remember that I was coming up in my career, the early days of my career, in a time when there were very, very few, if any, women in the room besides me. So the world was a very different place than it is now. And companies were not really family friendly. It was all about the job and all about work. And I had been a very, very diligent, high producing consultant. And when I had my third child, I was told that, I would be welcome to come back, but I shouldn't expect any more growth because a woman with 3 children couldn't be serious about her career. So I felt like that was not the place for me. And I really felt like I had the opportunity to start something. I had planned to take 6 months off from work. So I had 6 months to really start doing something and formulate my idea for an organization. And I felt like I had the great opportunity to create a different framework because I wanted to have that balance of both family and career. So I made up the rules for my company that were very family friendly. And so that was how I got there. And that was the framework for the company that I started.
Were there any challenges when you first started it?
So many challenges. I was an engineer and a mathematician. I was not a business person. I had done the business side of consulting as an employee in another organization, but I didn't really know everything that was behind the curtain. So learning all about business, learning about lines of credit, learning about mortgaging everything you have to have startup capital, learning how to hire the right employees, so many of those kinds of challenges. And then, being credible so that people would be open to giving work to me. I'm pretty well known now. Back then, not quite the same way. So it was a little bit more of a steep mountain to climb.
Would you do something different if you were to restart? Like, if you were to give an advice to your younger self, would you do something different?
Yeah, and I don't know that it would have made things better, but I would have told myself to go get a business degree first and then start my company. But I think at the end of the day, it all worked out okay.
Okay. You spoke a little bit on this already. Being a woman in transportation engineering, were there any hurdles, or also starting a firm of your own? Were you going through like any uncharted territories?
Yeah. So, when I first started the company, I made a very big decision. At the time, there were advantages to being a woman-owned business, that there were projects set aside available for that. I made the decision not to certify as a woman-owned business because I really wanted to be invited to do work because we were the best at what we did, not because we filled somebody's checkbox. So it was several years before we finally applied to be part of that program. And we only did it because we were working on a project with Federal Highway Administration, and they asked us to apply so they could get credit for working with us. So that was one of the things that we agreed to do. But it could have been a problem, and I will say at the time, being in the South and being a woman in engineering was really rough. As I mentioned, I'd grown up in New York, and people had a much more inclusive mindset up there. So it was a little bit more challenging down here. But I took the position that I would use my difference to be more visible, to be more noticeable in the room. So I embraced the difference instead of trying to run away from it. And as you can imagine, I was almost always the only woman in the room. So I decided I would just take advantage of that and be as professional as I could be and make it work for me.
Okay. And then after Street Smart, you worked for the public sector. How was the transition from being on the consultant side and then to the public?
So there are a couple of interesting differences. When you're a consultant, you get to do some really great projects if you win the project, right? On the public side, you get to decide what's important and, create the project concepts. So I think, in that sense, being on the public side has some really exciting moments to it because you really get to decide what's most impactful for your community. On the other hand, on the consulting side, I got to make all the decisions for what meetings I attended, conferences, how I spent the company's money. On the public side, I had to live with a budget that was prescribed by others and manage within those constraints. So, there are pluses and minuses to each side.
Okay. What would you say? I mean, you spoke about this already, but what would you say you learned by working on both sides? And you have also worked with MARTA. I'm trying not to go through all, your entire bio. What did you say you learned from both?
So, when you work on the public side, you typically either answering to a board of directors or, in the case of the city of Atlanta, to the city council. So you have to understand the priorities of the people you're serving. So you're both serving the board and the community. And sometimes the wants and wishes are not exactly the same. So you have to figure out how to navigate those differences.
How do you make sure everyone is on the same page? When you're working with multiple different agencies, how do you ensure collaboration among everyone?
I think the world now has much more of a collaborative mindset than when I first started in that process. I think one of the things that helped me was all the work that I did in public engagement when I was still on the consulting side really helped me to understand a lot about how to bring people to the table and how to get them to actively engage. You have to understand that not everybody is going to always agree with you. You have to figure out where you can give a little bit, where is that flexibility, kind of pick out the things that are the most important things to accomplish. And then, let the other things kind of mold around that, so that you can take care of as many people in the conversation as possible. I don't think you'll ever get to a place in most projects where everybody is having a party, about the outcome. But as long as you get most of the people most of the way down that path, you usually have pretty good outcomes.
And then you also mentor a lot of people. So what made you interested in that and, for doing all that?
So I was very lucky early in my life, not long before I started working. I had a couple of people who were really important to me and who sewed into me and encouraged me. And so I understood a little bit about what that relationship could look like and what it could do to help somebody who maybe is going down a path that's not a traditional path, which was my story. So I always felt like I may not be more advanced in my career. I may not have done what you're interested in knowing about. But if I can be a good listener and maybe provide a little bit of guidance, a little bit of dialogue, sometimes giving somebody the opportunity to just talk things out, where they're doing most of the talking. When you say things out loud, a lot of times you figure them out for yourself pretty well. But I love being there for people. I love that opportunity to support people who are interested in growing.
What are some of the biggest challenges you have seen in transportation today, and what can be done better?
So the first challenge in transportation is always money. There will never be enough money to do everything that we want to do. So again, it comes back to setting priorities, making trade-offs. Do we do more projects, but do them more simply? Or do we focus our resources on a smaller number of projects and do them more extensively? Those kinds of conversations, I think, are really important. So I think funding is a key issue. Right now, I would say the second big issue is having enough people to do the work. We have a lot of workforce shortages. And so making sure that the people who are in the workforce are happy and staying engaged, but also working hard to fill the pipeline so that we have more people as we go forward to continue doing the great work that we need done.
Since you spoke a little bit on funding, how do you think the IAJ funding coming to an end, how do you see that impacting?
Yeah. So the law is coming to an end next year. The funding itself, there are funds that have been allocated and authorized. There'll be a few more years before those dollars are all spent out. So I think you're going to continue to see projects roll out that were funded by IIJA for a while. I think with the new administration, we're seeing a shift back to some of the more traditional types of projects and the types of funding mechanisms that we had years ago. So more of the what are they called? I would say pork barrel projects. That's what we used to call them years ago. Projects that are used to trade off that, I want, somebody in office wants to accomplish one goal, somebody else wants to accomplish another goal, and they trade off and support each other's projects that way. So I think we're going to be going back to a lot more basic transportation projects, not some of the kind of groundbreaking things that we've been doing in the last 5 to 10 years, and a lot more basic levels of funding.
Okay, that makes sense. So you had an extensive span of your career, and you were actually working when Olympics happened in Atlanta. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. That was a very exciting time. So I was very fortunate that I was part of a small group that was pulled together the first thing that we worked on was the concept for Centennial Olympic Park. What is there now used to be an old industrial area filled with trailers and little old buildings and several other roads, streets that went through the site that is now the park. So we had some design charrettes that were a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but to come up with the ideas. I was very fortunate. Oscar Harris, the architect, was the lead for that whole project. And he's just one of the most creative minds that you could ever imagine. And so the opportunity to work with him on that project was great. And then my company got to work on many projects. We did the park and ride facilities, the number of other design projects. And then the most rewarding thing that we did during the Olympics, our offices were out in Gwinnett County. And the Paralympics table tennis venue was being held in the facility, the county facility right next to where our office was located. So the whole staff volunteered to work at the Paralympic Games, and it was life-changing. The athletes that we met were amazing. And we just learned so much interacting with them and serving their needs. It was pretty spectacular.
Can you think of any lessons learned from that can be applied, be it city planning or any projects that can be applied to today?
Oh, absolutely. So I think about the World Cup coming and the other big events that we host here in Atlanta. So for the Olympics, there was fundamentally no parking in the downtown area. There was a circle drawn, and there was no parking allowed in that area. And so that's why we had all the park and ride facilities so people could gather and come in by bus. And it worked beautifully. People got where they needed to go, and there was no major traffic issue. People who were local had the opportunity to use MARTA, use the bus system, as well as the heavy rail. And it was very functional. So I think there are lessons learned there as we host these other big events to work, perhaps, use some of the same tools and techniques that we use then.
Are you also helping plan the World Cup? Are you on the committee? Or
I'm not right now. I was involved a little bit when I was still at the city of Atlanta, hoping to still lend a hand as it gets closer, but not doing anything on it right now.
Going a little bit more into the transportation, career, etc. How do you see data shaping our future? Street smarts, and you also had data smart. I feel like you would have a good idea.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it, and it's interesting because GHD has a relationship with a company called Compass IoT, which is a company out of Australia where GHD is based. And Compass IoT has the license for all of the vehicle data in all of the instrumented cars. So I have a new, RAV4. It's got all the technology in it. It's sending signals all the time about my braking, my use of turn signals, my seatbelt, everything. So using, Compass IoT has developed some very powerful tools for doing things like origin destination studies and other traffic analyses using all of those data. When I was first introduced to it, I was thinking, boy, when we were doing data smart stuff, so we were standing on the roadside, we were very high tech. We had little handheld computers and we were collecting data. Instead of on a clipboard, we were using little handheld computers. That was our trademark. The data that we were collecting, you might collect 1 or 2 or 3 days worth of data for any given situation. Well, now they're getting data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from, hundreds of thousands of vehicles all the time. So when I think about the richness of the data that are available now, the tools that are being developed to analyze those data, I feel like we have so much more information available to us. We just have to really figure out the smart way to use all of those data. But it's exciting.
Would you see more data analysts working with transportation?
Absolutely. I think transportation is a very interdisciplinary field. I think we need data scientists. working closely with us. I think there are a lot of other disciplines that blend nicely with the kinds of projects that we do in transportation, because we need all the pieces to work together: the urban planning piece, the engineering piece, the data piece. That they all have to come together.
So you spoke about mentorship. Do you have any stories or any mentors that have heavily influenced you in your career?
Yeah, so there are probably two that are worth mentioning. And they were mentors in the sense that they really got me on track to where I am today. The first one was my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Klotz. She was the first person to notice that I had an aptitude in math, and really encouraged me to pursue something to, using that math skill that I had. She also said something funny. She told me, because in 6th grade in my school, you were still in elementary school. So the next year I'd be going off to junior high school. She said, when you get there, you're going to start to like boys. And some girls act dumb because they think boys will like them better. She said, don't do that. Boys who are worthwhile will like a smart girl. So you be smart. Sometimes I followed her advice. Sometimes I didn't. But I was much better in math than I was in dealing with boys. So yeah, so she was a great mentor to me. And then my high school geometry teacher. So as good as I was in math, I really struggled. I was not doing well the first half of the school year. And in the state of New York, at the end of every school year, every student in the state takes a standard exam, a variety of subjects. So I knew my geometry, it was called a Regents exam, was going to be at the end of the school year. And at midterm, I was failing. And I couldn't imagine that I was failing a math class. And so I asked for help, and Mr. Schneider helped me. And he was very creative. He always had interesting ways of helping you to understand concepts, like the area of a sector of a circle. There's a cheese called Swiss night cheese that is a circle cut into sectors. And so he would use that to help us understand some of the concepts. And as a result of him sewing into me, the material clicked, and I ended up getting 100 on the geometry Regents. So yeah, people like that who sewed into me early really made a difference.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And now you have the ITE Young Member Award named after you. It's called Marsha Anderson Bomar's Young Member Award. What does that mean to you?
Oh my gosh, I was so blown away the day that they announced that they were changing the name of the award. You asked about mentoring. For me, the greatest gift is being able to sew into a young person to help them find their path. And so, I do it just because I love seeing people succeed. I love to see people find their way. And, I don't keep count. I don't think about it that way. So I was very moved when they said that, the work I had done was worthy of naming that award for me. I was very touched.
Yeah. I think you contributed so much to our community in general. So thank you for everything. So you just finished your PhD. Was it last year you finished it? So what kept you motivated? What made you pursue all these different degrees? What was your motivation behind it?
First, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to always be in learning mode. And I had started pursuing my PhD a very long time ago. For a variety of reasons, I decided to step away from it. And it was really the only significant thing that I had started that I didn't finish successfully, in my life. And so when I left consulting and I went into the public sector, the first job that I had, I felt like I had enough time to kind of put my toe in that water to see if I could handle going back to school. And I was loving it. So I made the time. I then went to work at MARTA and continued my studies, and actually picked a transit topic for my dissertation because of the work that I was doing and the passion that I have around transit. And the desire for transit to be successful. that I decided to finish my degree. And it was a very exciting moment.
Did that help you in your career? Where I'm headed with that is I talk to interns in the office or people who are in their high school or doing their undergrad. They often are thinking, oh, do I want to pursue and get an additional degree or do I need to work? Sometimes it's like an either or situation. It's not an and. So if someone's confused or thinking, what would you advise?
So if you have something that you feel like you really want to do a deep dive on, that you really want to work on, I wouldn't say necessarily a narrow subject matter, but a more defined subject matter for a long time, then an advanced degree makes sense where you can take the time and do that deeper dive and come out with a little more expertise in that area. I'm a big believer in education, so I think any education is a positive. Pursuing a degree, that's a very personal thing, whether you want to put in the time and the energy to actually get a degree or whether you just want to keep learning. I think that there are times when having an advanced degree may be advantageous. It may distinguish you from somebody else in a job interview or in a project interview when you have some demonstrated expertise. That's a personal choice as to whether you want to be in that position or not. But for me, it's all about education. I've been thinking about what I can do next.
Do you have something in your mind?
We've joked that maybe now I'll finally go back for that business degree, but who knows? We'll see.
So out of all the awards and honors you received in your career span, if you need to pick one, is there one that's close to your heart?
One that's close to my heart. So I've been very fortunate to win the two big named awards through ITE. The Matson Award was the first, and the Burton Marsh Award was the second. Burton Marsh Award is for service, and my heart is really all about service. And so I think that probably is one of the most meaningful awards I've received.
That's great to hear. If there is someone in their mid-career confused, or if they are thinking of starting something but not sure where to start, through this podcast, what would you advise them to do?
So I would say find somebody who's doing something similar to what you think you want to do. Try to create an opportunity to shadow them. If they're open to maybe a short-term mentor relationship so you can ask some questions and learn a little bit more. I think that's a good start to figuring out if something is right for you.
Okay. That's great. We have a couple of quick questions that we would like to ask you. So 3 questions. Is there a book that inspired you or changed the way you think?
Yes. So I don't know if you were old enough to remember Hanging Chads, but there was an election that was hotly contested because of some hand-punched voting cards called hanging, the little pieces of paper called Hanging Chads. And the Secretary of State from the state of Florida, where this happened, wrote a book called Center of the Storm. And the part that really mattered to me was not the part about the details of the process that they used to look at the ballots, but everything in her mind was all about holding the highest ethical standards as they proceeded every step of the way, and that she had to be insulated from the politics of it at every point to make the best decision using data, using facts, and being the ethical person that she is. And that really stuck with me because she was really on the hot seat. And for somebody to be able to stay the course and hold that high ethical standard, is very inspirational to me.
What's the name of the book again?
Center of the Storm, and it's Catherine Harris, and she was at the time Secretary of State for the state of Florida.
Is there a most interesting transportation project in the span of your career?
Many, many interesting projects. Let's see. I had to write them down because, let's see, the most interesting. So, I want to mention two. So one is the Brooklyn Bridge. I grew up in Brooklyn, but the Brooklyn Bridge was completed by a woman, Emily Roebling, whose husband had started the project and then became ill. So it's a bridge that brought two very distinct communities together in bridging Manhattan Island to Brooklyn. So it had a lot of significance in terms of the growth of the people who lived on both sides of the river. But of course, it's really important to me because a woman was at the helm when it was completed. So that was very important to me. And another inspiring project, probably the Olympics, because it really changed, all the work that we did really changed Atlanta. It really made Atlanta see the possibilities, not just the elected officials, but everybody who lived here got a chance to see the world, on their home territory, and got to understand what Atlanta could really be. And I think Atlanta really pivoted, Atlanta metro area, not just the city of Atlanta, but really pivoted after the Olympics to really being focused on being a world-class city.
And our third question, is there a best advice you ever received?
Let's see. Well, I told you the one that my sixth grade teacher told me about boys. That was probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. Let's see. But advice. Yeah. So, I have people in my life now who have a lot of courage. And I, over the course of my life and my career, I've learned a lot about myself and my desire to take care of other people. But sometimes you also have to take care of yourself. And so I've thought back over the years of the many times people have encouraged me to do that. And it's hard for me. It's still hard for me to do things to take care of me. But, as I look around the world around me, it's a very high pressure time of life for everybody. And I think being strong physically and mentally and emotionally is really important. So I think the best advice I've been given through my whole life is to, look at those three parts of who I am and make sure that they're all well. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, or how would you manage work-life balance? You travel a lot. You're actively involved in multiple initiatives. I was asking this question to our other speakers too, but I want to hear your thought on it.
So I don't believe in work-life balance. There is no such thing as balance. There is an attempt at work-life harmony. I think for me, that's much more realistic. I try to get things to blend together well. It's a pendulum. Sometimes it swings pretty far over to the work side. Sometimes it swings pretty far to the personal side. I try to always thread things that nourish my soul in when I'm very busy with work things. And right now, probably the biggest focus in my life are my children and grandchildren. So whenever I have a moment, whether it's, a few minutes for a phone call or a video chat, or it's a week where I can just go and be with them, that's how I take care of me and find that harmony. Yeah, I almost said balance, but it's not balance, it's harmony. Yeah.
Okay. I think to close it out, so you have achieved so much through your career. Is there anything still on your list that you're like, hey, I still want to do this. I want to check this box?
Yes. So I have a very long list of places I still want to visit. I have 5 states I haven't visited, so they're high on my list of places to get. But I have probably 15 countries that I still want to visit. So travel, and I don't travel lightly. I don't go like jump from place to place to place to place. I like to go someplace and really learn about the culture and the people. And I like to shop in neighborhood grocery stores and things like that. So it takes time to do that kind of traveling. So that's important to me. But I still feel like there's work that I want to do. I'm not ready to stop working. And I'm not sure, I'm loving the things that I'm getting to do with GHD right now, helping them with some of their new initiatives for as long as we're progressing on that. That's the home I'm going to be happy with. I don't know. I think maybe there's still one more civic project that's out there that I'm going to find to work on. Community is really important.
What type of legacy would you like to leave in the transportation industry?
Wow. What kind of legacy? I hope that I've planted enough seeds in enough people that I have multiplied myself. That the people I've touched with my mentoring or my project work, or however our paths have crossed, that they've gained a little something and a little understanding of how important it is to sow into other people. And if everybody who's in that position does a little bit of that, then I think a lot of people will be taking care of each other and it will be a better world. So I hope that's the legacy I've left.
I think that's a great closing statement. I think we should close at this. Thank you for everything you do. And I'm hoping someone somewhere listens to this, gets inspired, and they do amazing.
I really am grateful that you gave me the chance to do those things.
Thank you so much.